Greetings, Readosauruses. It's your friendly neighborhood mailman, the Trojanpear, here with another edition of Trojanpear's Book Club. Now, Thanksgiving is a time where we typically celebrate by eating. It's probably the most common thought of thing when you think of Thanksgiving. So, because cooking is so prevalent with Thanksgiving, I thought let's do a book review or a series of book reviews that actually have to do with cooking. So you probably figured that we're going to talk about cookbooks, right? Well, yes, and some of these are actually cookbooks. Some of these are actually going to be associated with a cook, because we are going to take a look at one of my favorite cooks growing up from the PBS days, because that's where he was always on. That's how I discovered him. Justin Wilson, the Cajun cook. Justin Wilson has been on PBS for many years. He had several programs to which he was utilizing his cooking shows on. He never always had the same cooking show. He had, like, when I was watching it, he had two the first he started, and then later on when he got older before he passed, he had two other ones that he did later on. So he had four total, spanning over, I don't know how many years it was. But he was somebody that I had discovered, like most of these cooks, because my grandmother always watched these cooking programs all the time. And it wasn't always PBS, but PBS obviously had a lot of cooking programs, and he was always on Saturdays, which was a common time that I would be at home, so I would be watching those programs periodically. And it came to the point, even when she passed, I really was into Justin Wilson more than any of them, to be honest. He was the most interesting because of his very elaborate humor, this Cajun style humor he has. So we're going to look at some of his cookbooks. Now, both of these cookbooks that I have four things, but these cookbooks that I have are actually from his two last series that he did. So I don't have the ones from the older ones, but these are the ones that we're going to look at. Also, I have a few other books. So, like, I have four things. And let me first just go over what's called Justin Wilson's Cajun Humor. Now, if you know Justin Wilson, that's one of his big things, is he likes to tell these stories that always have a funny twist at the end. It was always about telling jokes. And this here is a book, obviously a book when he was younger. It was 1974 when this one was written, and it was a list of all the different types of Cajun jokes that he would tell. Now, one of the interesting things, if you try to read these, it's hard to do it justice because it's going to have all this Cajun dialect in it. Here's an example of one of his Cajun humor tales. It says, "You know, the Cajun is the friendliest peoples in the world, and the U.S. and A too. They got a Cajun rookie in the army, and one day he passed himself by a big shoot general without salute. That put the big shoot general hot, yeah, and he pulled that rookie up short. 'How long you been in the army, soldier?' he say. 'Three week.' The big shoot general thought for a minute, and he say, 'What's your name, private?' That rookie smile and haul out his handy to the big shoot general. 'Broussard.' 'And you?' he say. So, I mean, if you understand the humor in that. Here's another one. And each one of these are titled. It says, I got a friend with me in the Lafayette. What got a wife took herself down to New Orleans to look at some dem Markland house in the Gordon district. They rich like hell, strike oil, you know, and that woman's want to buy, how you call a showing place. Well, this real astute broker got hold of her and show her a autonomous dome there. He took her through that. When they move out of the bedroom, he say, now this is the playroom, and then she cast bot eye on him right now, and she spoke that real astute agent. Then what? I do get that one a little bit better. But yeah, some of these you got to really understand what they're saying. So, but if you're Cajun, you definitely can pick it up right away. But if you're not used to the Cajun dialect, and of course not being Cajun, you know, it's real hard to mimic it, especially when you're trying to read it the way it is, and then you're like, okay, what is this? So it's interesting. Definitely interesting thing. Also, he's known with his Cajun fables. So these are, again, a very common thing. This is much like his Cajun humor. These are fables that has been modified. For example, Goldilocks and the Three Crawfish. So instead of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, it's the Three Crawfish. And usually these all have little pictures, illustrations on it. Some of these are pretty short, like instead of Jack and Jill, it's Jacques and Jill. Jacques and Jill went down to the bayou to catch some fish for court bouillon soup. Jacques fell in and lost his pole, and Jill, she fell in a crawfish hole. I like this one. Little Jacques Horner. Little Jacques Horner sat in the corner eating a crawfish pie. He put in his pinky and pulled out a slinky and said, what a good boy I am, I guarantee. Look at the picture. That's pretty good. So yeah, these are pretty funny. Jacques be nimble. Jacques be nimble. Jacques be quick. Jacques, he don't want to jump over that candlestick. No. So that's basically what this is a bunch of those little nursery rhymes that have been modified in a Cajun way. All right, so then last thing is we got 2 cookbooks. Okay, let's look back at the looking back one first. Now, cookbooks are pretty much all the same. You know, you're going to have things like your introductions and stuff like that. But these are like back to the days when he first started, because a lot of people probably that follow him now probably weren't following him back in these days. So a lot of this stuff, it's like, you know, let's take a look at it, because at this point in time he was getting too old to really be able to cook. That's why he did, we'll talk about the one before it, but that's why he started doing this one, because it was a way for him to kind of keep on being involved, even though he really wasn't able to be doing the cooking too much. So he just kind of brought back old recipes and would show episodes from his old series that he did back when he first started. And you have a lot of, I guess you could say, Cajun style stuff, but you know, you got your sauteed mushrooms, baked macaroni and cheese, oven, and so that's what you got in this, which is very interesting to have for that. This one's not one of my favorite ones, though. I prefer the one that came out right before, Easy Cooking. Why? Because it's easy cooking. When he came out with this show, this was the show that I most watched. I remember him most for his shows before this, where he was a lot more active and whatnot. He was still old, but he was definitely a lot more active and energetic back then. This one, he was a lot slower, a lot older, probably, not able to do as much. So he focused his attention on cooking stuff that was really easy to cook. So, in doing that, you have stuff on here that is pretty simple. Like boiled chicken gizzards. Now I want you to look. Okay, you have your list of ingredients. That's all you got to do right there is that little bit that it says right there. So when he says it's easy cooking, it's easy cooking. Listen, it says place all ingredients in a saucepan large enough to hold them comfortably. Cover, bring to a boil, let boil until the gizzards are tender, drain, serve. Boom, you're done. That's pretty simple, pretty easy. So what he's focusing on in this series is making it easy, not too complicated to cook. And it was really interesting watching this because he was very, he was much slower, couldn't do a whole lot. And so you try to put one, maybe two dishes of this stuff on a 30-minute program, that's kind of hard to do because this stuff can be done pretty quickly, and you're not going to, sit there and have something that's going to last 2 weeks. I mean, you're going to cut through some of that stuff, right? Because of the miracle of television that they call it. So what he would do is he would do some of the things that he's most known for. He would tell stories. So he would cook real slow, do a lot of his signature things like talking to his food, scolding it for not, acting right, or telling it to, get into the pot, and little humorous little things. But then he would also tell his stories, and sometimes he'd tell a lot of stories depending on how easy it was to move through stuff. But that would try to get you to go through it. And he wouldn't tell it fast. He would tell it, very slow, deliberately. And then when he finished, he would get his plate that had the prepared stuff. And he would put the food on the plate, walk the plate over to his table, sit down at the table, get his napkin ready, get his wine ready, and taste each one of the foods, giving his signature to indicate how good it was. And then the program would end. But see, it would be very slow, very deliberate, but it was great. I enjoyed it. I think doing something like that to a lot of these cooking shows, but this one in particular, sometimes gets us just to kind of slow down a little bit. You got things like an eggplant appetizer, which sounds interesting, that I could honestly do. There are things on here with my restrictions that I still would be like, oh yeah, I could do this. The question would be, have I ever used any of them from either of these? No, but then again, I don't really get to do a whole lot of that kind of cooking. Maybe there might be an opportunity one day in the future where I get to do stuff like that, and I would definitely enjoy maybe doing that. But if I do, it won't be on this program, it will be on another program, which is Trojanpear's Food Club. I hope to eventually do that as well. But when you look at all these different things from Justin Wilson, whether it's the cookbooks or the little humorous fables or his little stories of humor, I enjoy them all. Now, obviously, I keep the cookbooks pretty much just for enjoyment, but I hope maybe some of this stuff to one day be able to try out and cook myself. I keep the humor books because those are nice and humorous. Though a lot of these ones are the older stories and whatnot. They're kind of hard to get sometimes because you have to really make sure you understand the lingo from the Cajun dialect. But I think if you enjoy cooking, you always benefit by being able to try different things from some of these cooks, whether it's people like Justin Wilson or Graham Kerr or Martin Yan or even the frugal gourmet himself, Jeff Smith. And those are some of the ones that I'm most familiar with from my childhood and got to watch a lot of. But I think these hold a special place in my heart because of the nostalgic tie to watching Justin Wilson. What works for you? Were you big into cooking shows at all when you were young? Maybe you are young now. What kind of shows hold your attention? Is it kind of this older style, or maybe more of this newer style that you see? I'm not really as much into some of these cooking shows that are on nowadays. I see a lot of them are generated towards competition. It's too much high pace, high speed type stuff. I just prefer to just have the old, say, recipe type cooking shows like Julia Childs used to do back in the day. Who were some of your favorites? I would love to hear your thoughts and discussions on this. This is what Trojanpear's book club is about. It's not just about me spouting off my thoughts, but I would love to actually hear the active discussion about what are some of the things that you enjoyed. So, I look forward to hearing those responses. And next month we'll be looking at Christmas. What book do I have for Christmas? Probably a Christmas classic that I read at least once when I was a kid and have still in my collection here today. But until then, this is your friendly neighborhood mailman, the Trojanpear, wishing you blessings. Bye-bye.